Hey, Mickey.
Hey, Bob. So we have a quiz for you.
Oh,
Perhaps an overly complicated quiz.
I'm sure I'll handle it.
A U.S. senator
Mhm.
has proposed creating a new bureaucracy in the executive office of the president
Mhm.
to deal with what policy? And you have a variety of choices here, Bob.
Oh, good. Let's see. Loneliness. Loneliness. I'm going with loneliness.
Wait, we haven't even got to the rest of the list.
I know, but I think it was lonely. Okay, go ahead, though. Atonement? No. Privilege? No, that's too stereotypically woke. Polarization? That's yesterday's problem. And today's and tomorrow's, but still. Mobility? What? What's wrong with mobility? What?
It's decreasing. Go ahead.
The crisis of people moving?
No, moving up in the economic ladder. Never mind.
Anomie. Can we conflate that with loneliness? Like if I get either one, if I choose either one and it's either one, I win?
You could get enemy because it's French, so it's obviously not enemy.
No. Fertility, they're not anti-fertility. That's a crude stereotype.
They would be pro-fertility.
Oh, pro-fertility. No, that's too controversial. Involves sex. Social equality. No, too stereotypically woke. Cognitive empathy. I think not. No. Didn't we already do fertility? Do you have fertility?
Yeah, I have fertility twice. It's fertile.
Well, it's in the nature of fertility, yes, to reproduce itself.
Also, we have the final one, senility.
Psychotropics. I'm still going with loneliness. I'm going with loneliness.
Self-esteem.
Now that's yesterdecade.
Sprawl, decadence. Very Ross doubt that.
Yeah, well, no, that's a Republican issue.
Well, Bob,
I got it, didn't I?
You got it. And who is the senator?
Look, I can't. Don't press your luck. I don't know who is the senator.
It's a senator you like, Bob.
That does narrow it down. In fact, no names come to mind. It narrows it down to zero.
Chris Murphy doesn't come to mind? Yeah.
Well, I liked him more a year ago.
What did he do wrong?
He went kind of full on over-the-top blob on Ukraine, I would say. More than was necessary. More than was necessary.
Well, he's with the conventional wisdom on loneliness, and I agree with that. The loneliness is a big problem, but what is wrong with what he's proposing?
But it's a problem that government can't solve?
No, it's a problem government might help, but it's the classic bullshit Washington solution, which is loneliness is a problem, so we need a national loneliness policy. So let's have a new bureaucracy, the Office of Social Connection Policy in the White House. It'll have an advisory council, and it'll come up with this national loneliness policy, and it'll take 5 years and employ a lot of people. If he's so smart, he should come up with the solutions himself and propose them.
The streamlined
that would be constructive.
The boiled down version of the algorithm you just laid out in all its beautiful complexity is something must be done. This is something. Therefore, we must do this.
Right.
That's the logic.
And Mike Lee said that the decline of social capital, but which is sort of the same thing, community connectedness that's valuable, was important. And he formed his own task force, and they seem to have aborted before they came up with solutions, but didn't waste a lot of taxpayer money or start a bureaucracy that just bugs other bureaucracies saying, I know you're working on nuclear power, but could you say what you're doing to contribute to ending loneliness? It's not a good way to approach things. It's a classic Washington make-believe solution.
Will there be subsidies for buying sex bots? Well,
That's
when
one
the
solution.
AI is actually, I meant to research this. I heard something that Netflix has a dating game, except with not sex bots. What was the term? I'll look into this. We're getting there. We are getting to the point where I will personally demand government subsidies for sex bots.
Well, the Office of Loneliness Policy will be riven with discord because there'll be the people who think artificial solutions to loneliness are valuable, and those who want the old style organic, the crunchy con types. The My solution is food trucks. I've told you my solution.
Yeah, we had a long
Yeah.
food trucks repartee. It seems like years ago. Has that idea evolved at all, or is it still mainly food and trucks?
It's mainly food and trucks. um, but you could have, it's basically like, once a week there's a community gathering in your neighborhood, which is
Hmm.
small, not citywide, but, like 20 square blocks or something. And food trucks come. And if you want to have, sex spots on the side, that's
I
fine
was
too. But,
I was just about to ask. Will
but,
there be
uh,
sex
you,
spots in the
but,
trucks?
people show up and you can meet your neighbors. I don't know. And it's free food. What the hell?
There's a serious point here, which is that people are going to be using AI to address their loneliness. It's happening.
I know. It's
what's that
unfortunate.
company? Is Replica the company that makes buddies for you? You can have your own digital
Yes,
buddy.
but they're pathetic.
Hmm.
But they'll get better.
And you heard that there's going to be a new James Dean movie, Back to Eden or something, with an AI James Dean, fake James Dean, deep fake James Dean. They're actually going to make a movie.
And it's going to be all about global warming, right?
No, it's going to be about. Yeah.
I was amazed that the reboot of The Day the Earth Stood Still made it not about nuclear Armageddon, but about global warming.
We learned that from one of our many alert Parrot Room commenters.
That's so pathetic. Although it was more pathetic.
It's a bad week.
It was
a
more
bad
pathetic.
week to
It was
say
more
that you
pathetic
shouldn't
3
worry
weeks ago.
about global warming, Mickey. There are people melting all over the globe.
Not where I am. I have the solipsistic view. In Los Angeles, we're protected by coastal mountains, and it's a beautiful 80 degrees.
When I did my podcast with the Russians with Attitude, guys, one of them was complaining about how hot it was, and he was in Siberia. Mickey.
That's bad.
Western Siberia, but still Siberia.
How did we get on this? They're remaking
global
AI.
warming. Yeah. We could follow
weird.
the chain back if we were younger and more vigorous, but let's move on.
Okay, I actually went on a dating site.
Ooh.
The other day.
You kind of buried the lead here, Mickey.
It's a very artificial experience. The people might as well be bots.
That's true of people generally.
Probably some of them are.
Mm-hmm.
And arguably would have the same experience if they were or they weren't.
Did you strike up a conversation with anybody?
I didn't get that far. I didn't have enough
lurking?
photos. I didn't have enough photos. You have to have 6 photos on this site. And I felt like saying, there are hundreds of videos of me on Blogging Heads. You want to know what I look like, go to Blogging Heads, but or to Non-Zero.
Mm-hmm.
But
show them the one where you have the Nancy Pelosi inflatable doll. Nothing attracts the babes like an inflatable doll.
You be nice to my Nancy Pelosi doll. And have I shown you my Star Wars memorabilia? Okay.
Right next. Anyway. Yeah. So, but there are things going on in the world aside from loneliness.
The Ukrainian counteroffensive is gaining steam.
Any moment now. A lot is going on there. Now, there may be other things you want to talk about on the domestic front.
Yeah, there are. But I have a question about the counteroffensive is foundering on old-style deep fortifications that the Russians have erected. Wasn't the military reform movement and maneuver warfare and strategy supposed to obviate these Maginot Line defenses and make them obsolete? And yet here we are fighting World War I, and Colonel James Boyd and maneuver warfare seem nowhere in sight.
Funny you should mention that. There was a group of very well-known military analysts who went to Ukraine and just got back not long ago. Michael Kaufman, Rob Lee, and a guy named, Gady or something. And they've all reported in various venues, at least in a preliminary way, about what they found. One thing they agree on is that, the kind of key preparation for the offensive, they didn't put it this way, but it was just a failure. What happened was, we trained 9 brigades. That's like tens of thousands of guys in Europe NATO trained them, and they were supposed to train them in combined arms warfare. That's where you kind of intricately coordinate various elements, tanks, artillery, infantry, some sort of air support, even if only drones. And you do it on a large scale. And you hit them hard.
These are Ukrainians being trained.
Yeah. These were of the 12 brigades that were kind of designated for this, although there are others that have participated. But the new brigade, the 12 brigades stood up. 9 were trained in Europe in combined arms warfare.
Right.
And basically, they didn't train them for long enough. I remember months ago listening to Kaufman and Dmitry Alperovich on a podcast, like maybe 5-6 months ago, saying they're training them for it was either 6 weeks or 8 weeks. And they're like, that's not much. And these guys are mostly fresh conscripts. And you learn a lot through experience in any weird endeavor like war. And if you've never been in it, you're going to learn your lessons painfully. And so, look, these guys, these analysts who have come back and are talking about this have specified a number of things, including what you mentioned, the depth of the entrenchments. And by the way, some tricks that Russians have come up with. We sent these mine-sweeping vehicles, and the Russians, by stacking 3 anti-tank mines on top of one another and burying them, they're blowing those up. So those I think have become virtually worthless. And I think they've been blown up. We didn't give them many, and I don't know if we're going to give them more. But anyway, they all agreed that they can't do combined arms warfare. I think they would also say this is a very challenging environment for it. They don't have air superiority. There's mines everywhere. And again, the minesweepers aren't working. And the Russians spent a long time preparing. I mean, the funny thing is that the guy who gets credit for this on the Russian side is the guy nobody's seen in public for weeks, Surovikin. He prepared the defensive lines and the protocol, the strategy for how you use them.
Do the Russians have air superiority?
I think they are apparently closer to it than Ukraine is. I mean, in that the first attempt at combined arms, they sent this brigade down. They really gave it a try, and they got smashed. And I know that Russian helicopters took something of a toll on that one.
Who got smashed? The Russians or the Ukrainians?
No, the Ukrainians. This was the initial thing where you had this picture of 7 armored vehicles right together.
So
smashed.
I mean, if we were fighting this war, we would call in airstrikes and just blow all these fortifications up, right? I mean, we would win this war if you put our army against the Russian fortifications. Because we would have air superiority, we would presumably just use the air to blow them up, right?
I don't know. I mean, a lot of the Michael Kaufmans of the world say these F-16s aren't going to be a game changer, and that's kind of what you're talking about. I think, look, if you could have exactly the armamentarium, if that's the word that you want, with much better air defense capabilities, for example, and mobile air defense capabilities. I'm sure if you spelled it all out and you had your ideal array of weaponry, yeah, probably. And look, yes, I think our people are better trained in combined arms warfare. It's hard to do. And they don't just train them for 6 weeks, right? I mean,
what about Warthogs, the plane that is so useful that the Pentagon wants to stop producing it?
Yeah, this is a Rick Hertzberg talking point circa 1987.
It's still going on. They haven't killed it yet, but they're going to kill it this year, I think. But they have something more expensive and less effective that they're going to sell to us. Okay. Well, that's depressing.
Yeah, I mean, look, anything could happen. There could be some big Russian collapse. But basically, it seems to me Biden really needs to push things toward peace talks.
Well, isn't this in itself is pushing things towards peace talks?
Well, I think it is changing the environment in that direction. It needs to. And, as I said months ago, there is the danger that you exhaust your resources on a failed counteroffensive. Russia starts feeling its oats, maybe has to do another mobilization, but winds up taking Kharkiv and Odessa, which is which they would like to have. And so, we're not in as strong a bargaining position as we were before the offensive started. That's for sure. But
isn't
the
U.S. doesn't the U.S. election affect this? In other words, if Biden could announce we have peace in Ukraine before the election, he thinks that would be very good for him. It wouldn't be as good as he thinks it would because Americans don't care about foreign policy, but that'll be a good feather in his cap. So doesn't that sort of drive him to starting it soon?
I mean, especially if it's spun as de facto Ukrainian victory for whatever reason. That'll be a whole debate, among the talking heads, like when there's peace. And at this point, Russia would be keeping some Ukrainian territory. And so there will be an argument. I think the way I would put it is the kind of peace you'd think he could get now will probably be better for him than ongoing war would be a year from now, right?
Right.
Because it's just going to that's not going to look like success. If this is still going on, it's hard to imagine it looking like success. And so politically, I would think he'd be wise to do this now. I mean, the other big, go ahead.
I don't think voters care what the contours of the settlement is. I'm sorry. It may be very important whether Russians get Kharkiv. Americans don't give a shit.
I kind of agree. I mean, there will be the big debate among the elites, but I kind of agree that most Americans don't care how it comes out. Right.
And the right has this whole thing where they're shifting against the war, and Biden would just cut that off. He would cut off that source.
I think it's in his interest to end it. I think you can really make the case that even if Russia kept everything they've got now, of course, it depends on what the security arrangements for Ukraine are. Are they in NATO? Blah, blah, blah. But I think you can very much make the case that it's not a victory for Russia, and it's a kind of victory for Ukraine. If you remember where they were a couple of weeks into the invasion, this would have seemed like paradise. With the Russians be pushed back as far as they've been pushed back and not do what it seemed like they might do any moment, which is take Kyiv and take Kharkiv. They've been pushed out of Kherson.
Ron DeSantis gave a much better answer when he was talking to Jake Tapper on Ukraine, but he said one thing that I think was wrong, which he said, and we wanted to negotiate a settlement that does not reward Russia for its aggression. Well, I mean, you could spin it as a victory for Ukraine, but it's still rewarding Russia for its aggression, right?
Well, I mean,
what? Is there a way?
The part where they keep the territory is definitely, and the question is whether, on balance, all things considered, like they wound, from their point of view, is it a strategic improvement? Actually, probably no. I mean, they didn't want Sweden and Finland in NATO. They didn't. There's a ton of stuff that are a consequence of this.
Okay, well, there you go. That's how DeSantis can worm his way out of that statement.
Yeah, but I will. I mean, the other weird thing that there's a couple of things that have happened that are big news. I mean, first of all, Russia's been bombing the shit out of Odessa. At first, I thought that was retaliation for Ukraine trying to blow up the Kerch Bridge. But it seems, the more the bombing has, the missiles technically have focused on the port infrastructure, the more it does seem connected to the fact that the Russians are getting out of the grain deal as well. I don't know if they're getting out of it or not renewing it or whatever. And then, somewhat ominously, they're saying any ship in the vicinity will be, deemed in effect a belligerent. So there's all that. I mean, you might hope that this is bargaining, but when they, in other words, they just want a better deal on the grain deal or they want something else. But when they're blowing up all these ports, it doesn't seem like it's going to be just a short-term inconvenience. But the other related thing, it may be related. This is very conjectural, but which could be related to Putin in this sense, kind of escalating. I mean, this is like really serious assault on Odessa. And a weird thing happened today. This guy, Strelkov or Gherkin, one of those is his nom de guerre. I forget which one. That
No.
we've talked about him before. You brought him up. He was involved in the original Donetsk uprising, former FSB agent. There's controversy over whether he was freelancing. This was before Russian troops showed up. But he was
that guy. Yeah.
he was arrested today, and he
by who?
By the Russians. He was probably in Donetsk, but in the part that, I mean, Russia claims to have annexed Donetsk. In Russia occupied Donetsk, I'm guessing. And although he and Prigozhin hate each other, they both are considered these kind of angry patriots who are always agitating for a better fought war and criticizing the military. Okay. And then after he was arrested, a guy who had been involved with him, I think in the Donetsk uprising, was in Russia and just, held up a sign protesting his arrest or something. And he was arrested. So I think, Putin may be feeling heat in the wake of the Prigozhin thing, may be feeling heat from the nationalist right. I mean, if you ask, what does he seem worried about right now, based on this kind of strange arrest of this Girkin guy, Strelkov, seems to feel some heat.
Maybe that was the hidden part of the Prigozhin deal, which is, okay, I'll stand down the Wagner Brigade, but you have to take out my rival private nationalist force as well.
That would have been some pretty, I mean, they're rivals, but they don't have that much consequence for each other, I don't think. That would be some pretty arcane bargaining when you're in the middle of, where they were in the middle of when they were doing the bargaining. By the way, Prigozhin does seem to be finally in Belarus, and he registered some kind of complaint about the conduct of the war, but he hasn't been criticizing individual Russians in the defense ministry anymore. Anyway, what I want to say is, I wonder if that this latest kind of escalation, in a sense, by Putin of the war itself, in the form of the bombing of Odessa, this is very conjectural. But I wonder if he's kind of feeling the heat from the nationalist right. And he's dealing with it domestically by neutralizing some of these guys. But he's also dealing with it by giving their constituencies some of what they want in terms of the war. That's kind of a wild hypothesis, I grant. But they're both very interesting developments.
The prestigious Institute for the Study of War, I know an outfit that you respect a lot, had a piece with two seemingly contradictory points, which is, one is the Russian army and defense, the prosecution of the war is riven with dissent. There are all these commanders who are questioning Gerasimov and the chain of authority. They're going outside the chain of authority. They're publicly voicing their dissent. Putin is going outside the chain of authority and bypassing Gerasimov. It's a whole mess. And the other thing is that Putin isn't hearing the bad news. Well, it seems to me with all this dissent and chaos, how does he not hear the bad news? The two propositions contradict each other.
Yeah, that's never stopped ISW before. You do wonder how much news gets through to him, but damn well the arrest of Girkin was cleared with him. Although that could have been initiated by people in the defense ministry, because they are enemies of Girkin.
I guess he's not an online guy. If he was an ordinary American, he would go online and say, well, what's this blogger saying today? And he would find out.
He is reportedly not an online guy at all, and that could be one of his problems. He's not on Threads.
Did you read that? Threads is
tanking.
Threads is definitely not going to tell him the bad news.
No, that's his problem. Threads is very cheery, but
he's on Threads. That's the problem.
Have you heard the numbers on Threads?
No, are they bad?
Plummeting, tanking. There was a piece in the Wall Street Journal.
I did some research of my own on that, which I'll unveil later.
What numbers did you come up with, Mickey?
Well, it seems to me that Twitter is winning the Maggie Haberman primary. In other words, she says she's going to post on both sites. But as of yesterday, she had posted in the last few days, she had posted 10 threads on Threads and 30 tweets on Twitter. So clearly she's finding that Twitter is the better platform for her.
Game over.
I think so.
But you got Ezra Klein on Threads, although he's been registering some complaints about it. But listen to this. So first of all, the graph is, I mean, the numbers are just way down over the peak. And to some extent, that's not surprising. There was the initial enthusiasm. But according to the company that the Wall Street Journal is relying on for its estimates, Threads active daily users is 13 million. They spend an average of 4 to 5 minutes on the site. Twitter's average daily users is 200 million, and they spend an average of 30 minutes on the site. And again, Threads' lines are dropping sharply right now. Now, they say they're going to add all these features that if they had thought about it and wanted to, they could have added in the first place. I still think it was an intentional omission in some cases because of the way they were trying to shape the community. But they claim they're now hustling to add various features. But it's like my Elon Musk Schadenfreude is playing a zero-sum game with my Mark Zuckerberg Schadenfreude. It's just there's no winning here.
I'm totally against Zuckerberg. The media has been pushing this, especially the left, that Threads is destroying Elon. They attacked him at a moment of vulnerability. He's destroyed Twitter, and Threads is providing the alternative, and it's all over for Twitter, and Threads is the future. And it was obviously wishful thinking and bullshit. And Bob, it showed everything that's wrong with today's media.
Well, it wasn't obvious. I mean, it did seem like Threads was kind of catching on.
It was obvious that they did not have the goods to show that Threads was going to defeat Twitter.
No, and it's obvious that, like, I mean, you launch without, a browser-based version so that nobody can use a physical keyboard. That's a gamble. I think, as I've said, I think they thought that was excluding a certain type of person they wanted to exclude, including the kind of like obsessive who's always screaming at people and just hunting down people to attack or whatever. Maybe that's what they thought. But I can't believe it was unintentional. It would be an easy thing to develop, and they didn't. And every time I looked at it, I thought, well, okay, but this is a passive experience. I mean, granted, I'm not as facile with typing on a smartphone as like younger people or whatever, but still, it's just a smartphone. You can't really dig in and engage. It's like I was just lurking.
Also, I've been on Threads, and I was trying to think: are the left finding their friends and having a useful conversation? And they're definitely finding their friends, and they're talking about things and reinforcing each other. But is that really the conversation they want? Are they that interested in the warm bath of approval that they want to see Robert Reich say, we're right, and other people say, you're right, Bob, and here's a new wrinkle in how horrible the right is, and they're not reaching anybody outside of their little orbit, and I don't think they're happy. They can't be happy with that. I'm sorry.
Well, I don't think they're happy with recent numbers. The other question is how much of this traffic was from the beginning coming from Instagram, right? I mean, because that's where the great, majority of people came from. They were transported from Instagram. Well, they can't be spending their time on both at once. So you would think that what was some of the impressive numbers for Threads at the beginning had come at Instagram's expense anyway. And they're almost, it's just too much like Instagram to be a rival to Twitter.
Back to Ukraine. Did you read that article on Ukrainian Harper's? I read Ed Coulter's summary. It seemed pretty good.
Well, that came out a couple of months ago, I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I listened to those guys on a podcast. I didn't read the piece. I mean, it was, what were your main takeaways?
One of the main takeaways were that it was just a big picture that, NATO had nothing to do after we won the Cold War. So they started off being triumphalist and belligerent and to humiliate Russia and Putin. That seems completely congruent with what I was watching at the time.
Yeah, I don't know if the goal of NATO expansion was to humiliate Putin, but the effect was, and there were people who wanted to do that.
It was sort of the mindset. It was like, gee, what's our next project? Where do we go from here?
Well, right. But some of it was this
we could not humiliate Putin, but then we'd have nothing to do. So let's,
But there was also this, let's spread, democracy and markets. And,
right.
Fine. But then I just think it was a terrible idea. I don't think it served that goal.
I mean,
And you know,
the Harper's article was not a breakthrough. It wasn't a paradigm shifter. It just accurately summarized
yeah,
a lot of what was wrong with what we did.
yeah. That's why I didn't read it, but I listened to them on a podcast. They seemed like
You know who's very online in a way, the obverse of what Putin is?
a politician.
Sort of.
You got to give me some clues. There's a lot of people in the world, Mickey.
He's a hate figure on the right, a hate object of the right.
But you think it's ironic that he's online, so he must be old.
No, it's not ironic. It's supposedly telling that Fauci he doesn't read anything. He spends his entire day online. I find that sort of hard to believe, but he's coordinating this vast army of scientists online. He doesn't really dig into their papers and see what's right or not. But I was told that is a flaw in how he operates.
He doesn't dig into the papers of scientists?
Yeah, did they use the right, Yeah, I mean, the way he would if he was not trying to run the operation he runs.
Yeah.
They got into huge trouble this week with these past few weeks with the badinage, the snarky frat boy badinage that preceded them producing this paper pissing on the lab leak theory, which they all seem to sort of believe, but they pissed on it anyway.
Wait, this is a recent paper or what of that early
this
one
is
in
that
Lancet?
Dr. Christian somebody.
So it's an old one or a new one?
You can't tell on the web. I don't think it's a
new.
It's an old paper.
Yeah,
Their Slack like online conversations have come out recently.
Right. Now I remember those. I was about to say, Fauci was online early in the pandemic because we've seen all that stuff. So what else? What did you think of the? Oh, wait a second. We got to get you to confront this Spartacus thing, Mickey.
Well, I mean, I what I said has been misinterpreted. I said, Burt Lancaster, and obviously what I meant, Bob, was
Kirk Douglas, of course.
They miscast the role. The role should have gone to Burt Lancaster, but they gave it to this guy, Kirk Douglas. That's all I was saying. I wasn't actually saying that Burt Lancaster was in the movie, Bob. I mean, I knew that.
When I said, didn't Kirk Douglas play Spartacus, and you said, no, Burt Lancaster did, what you really meant was he should have.
He should have, yes, exactly.
Yeah, no, I see. It makes sense. That's the way I would have said it.
That was really embarrassing.
It should be for you. And, I didn't have the nerve to challenge you because you are descended from Hollywood royalty after all. And I am a mere, middle American.
I know. It's true. And I almost got away with it.
Some people.
It wasn't for those damn kids.
People who watch the public podcast may not know that your grandmother, Gina Kaus, wrote the screenplay for the movie The Robe, which I watched as a child. Gina?
Gina. That's what we called her Gina, yeah.
It's Gina, right?
Yeah.
No, it's Gina.
We all said, hi, Gina. She didn't say, no, it's Gina.
Maybe she was too polite.
Could be. She wasn't a polite person. If you read her autobiography, which I didn't, but it's in German. People say it's brutally honest. She's sort of, I was saying she's sort of been in the news. There are all these books on Weimar and the Pacific on the German expats, and she's part of that. And there's another one coming out.
Okay.
So there. And my nephew is translating parts of her autobiography.
You come from a very eminent family, Mickey. You don't have to rub it in. Whereas I come from humble origins, but do know or thought I knew until I wilted under your skepticism. I thought I knew who played Spartacus.
Anyway, I think I know why I made the mistake, but it was a horrible mistake.
We agree on something. So this RFK anti-Semitism thing. What'd you think of this?
Well, I'm the last man to charge anti-Semitism, as you know, and I thought what he said was crazy and kooky,
Mhm.
but wasn't what we heard wasn't necessarily anti-Semitic. I mean, he this idea of the anti-Semitic trope is designed to let you accuse people of anti-Semitism when they're not being anti-Semitic.
Mhm.
And anti-Semitism would be, Jews are horrible people. They only care about money. They drink the blood of Gentiles. Blah blah blah. They're inferior.
That would be well above
that
the
would
threshold.
be.
Yes,
I would say that would be anti-Semitic. But saying, this disease seems to affect some ethnicities more than others, and I'm told that it's Chinese and Jews that it affects less than others, and he prefaced it and ended it even in private, I think, with a bunch of disclaimers how it might be bullshit.
Well, fine, but he did say
the memo went out 2 weeks ago. Get RFK Jr. and members of his family are being forced to denounce him, and it's a scarily efficient operation.
Well, come on. He's given him a lot of raw material here. I mean, he did say in the course
this wasn't
of
in
that,
public.
He did say, now, I don't know whether this was intentionally targeted. And I mean, come on, does he really think that somebody developed the COVID vaccine in order to hit a specific ethnicity? I mean, the funny thing is that if he does have a sneaking suspicion like that, he's thinking about the Chinese, not Jews. I mean, he is, first of all, his vaunted iconoclastic courage on foreign policy. Ask him about Israel. Okay. He's suddenly Chuck Schumer. I mean, he is very careful about that issue.
That must be because of his anti-Semitism.
Well, I suppose you could argue that it's that's the case.
Compensating.
I think it's more political antennae that were honed in American politics, but anyway, I quote tweeted him because everyone was saying this is an anti-Semitic trope, and I quote tweeted like, okay, it's good that people are noting the anti-Semitic subtext, and I tried to put that in a way where I didn't mean to be saying I was sure he meant that, but depends on your meaning of subtext. I said, but I wish more people would note the xenophobic subtext, because at this point in history, I think that's as dangerous as anti-Semitism in terms of the consequences. Yeah.
I think they're both bullshit. We should be able to talk about China as a non-transparent society. We don't know what's going on. So people are going to speculate about what they're doing. And there's always been speculation for decades that people are looking for ethnically targeted bombs, even, much less diseases. Diseases is obvious. And different ethnicities get different diseases. There's sickle cell anemia. There's, Tay-Sachs disease. There are all sorts of diseases that seem to be ethnically targeted. And why shouldn't people speculate that the brightest, most evil minds in the world might be trying to come up with something that's ethically targeted?
I think if it's a crazy speculation, you should rein yourself in. That's what I think.
He was at a dinner party. He didn't give a speech about it. He was talking to the people next to him at a dinner party.
Yeah, but it's a window on his mind, and I think even in that group, before saying something that will cast aspersions on one or two ethnic groups, you should be careful and make sure you got your shit together. And, that's the other thing.
How do you get your shit together if you can't talk to people?
Do the research for starters. I think he virtually asserts, if you look at the way he said it, that we not only know that there was differential impact on different groups. And by the way, there's a billion explanations for this, right? I mean, being Jewish is correlated with socioeconomic status, quality of health care, all kinds of things. I mean, this is just...
Right, it's like disparate impact.
To run for to be taken seriously as a presidential candidate. Right. This is just crazy, stupid shit. But I think he went further and asserted
I'll give you crazy, stupid shit.
Okay. Well, that's relevant if you're okay. Anyway, two things. I think he went further and asserted that we also knew that it was biochemically engineered, that we knew why it was affecting these different ethnic groups differently. I strongly suspect that's wrong. I mean, this guy is not very discerning about which data to embrace.
No, but if we're prohibited from discussing the lab leak theory for a year, it's going to be harder to get that data. So
I'm not. Where did that come from? I have myself argued in the Washington Post that we need to take the lab leak hypothesis seriously, and the liberals do. Now, final thing. So on that quote tweet of mine, it was quote tweeted by your friend Annie Bardak, right? Who writes about Cuba.
Right.
My quote to you was quote to you. And she said something like, "Shut your trap, Bobby." And I thought she was talking about me. In retrospect, so I replied like, very nice, polite reply, like, was there something I...
Right, she meant Bobby Jr.
She meant Bobby Jr.
Her husband's named Bobby, too, so he could have been...
So she's used to saying that, right. Yeah.
It's... I don't like RFK Jr. I don't think he should be running for president. His only utility is as a measure of discontent with Biden. And he's very useful in that respect. And he isn't going anywhere, in part, I guess, because of the concerted effort to stop it, but also because he's not qualified. People don't think he should be president. People would rather have Biden. So it's, but I don't know why anti-Semitism always has to be hauled out. It's not like the big gun that people think it is, and it's also, it has a cry wolf effect. It's like, people are insensitized now because the Anti-Defamation League cries anti-Semitism at the drop of a hat. So when the real thing comes along, they'll just go, "Oh, it's the Anti-Defamation League again."
No, I agree on that, but that's partly because they're focused on muting criticism of Israel, and they're
they have this new guy who's turned them into something they didn't used to. I mean,
Jonathan, whatever.
Yeah, that guy.
Right. They under Abe Foxman, they were one kind of bad, and under this guy, they're too woke for you probably now, right?
Yes, they're both woke and hair trigger anti-Semitism accusations, and they used to be just the latter. I don't know. Anyway, that's the view from Beverly Hills.
Okay, well,
anyway. There are a couple of political things to talk about, important political things. One, Ron DeSantis, after like having this crazy online campaign where he avoided mainstream media outlets and, had his PAC, the Never Back Down PAC, tweeting all sorts of crazy things with homoerotic and homophobic imagery. He decided to give interviews to the mainstream media. And it turns out he's really good at it. He's not great. He's not entertaining. You don't want to tune in because it's a good time. But he's professional. He exudes executive authority. He's nuanced. He's on top of the policy. He's better than any other Republicans running. With the only possible exception would be Trump. And Nikki Haley is winning and engaging, maybe in a way he's not. But he's doing well for himself. And so maybe this idea that he's he's floundering and it's a doom spiral was bullshit. He benefits from being crazy before, for what I call the Falwell principle, right? The Falwell principle is if you act like a crazy right winger and say, "Let's kill the Jews," and then you get into the public spotlight after you got out of this publicity and say, "No, we want all people to live in harmony." Everybody says, "That Falwell, he's a nice guy. He's much better than expected." And if he just said that all along, nobody would even pay attention to him. So he benefits from the Falwell principle. It turns out he's not that bad a guy, even though some of his positions are still too extreme. And so that strategy is going to work for him. He's a bobblehead. I mean, you have to get used to the head bobbing up and down.
You mean literally, physically, or
he's literally physically a bobblehead. His head is constantly bobbling.
Is he metaphorically one?
No, but I think the Ron DeSantis bobblehead doll is unnecessary. He is a bobblehead doll. But people get used to that. And he has a whiny voice, and it's not like he has no humor. He has some humor, but there's not a whole lot of it.
Not a
So
lot.
but he's good enough. He's good enough, and he has a shot in Iowa, and in New Hampshire, which is supposed to be a bad state for him, he's only like 13 points behind. That's nothing in New Hampshire. That's nothing in
Oh,
New Hampshire a
but I
week
do
before the
think
election.
I do think you said that last week, and you should come up with a new promising DeSantis sign each week.
Oh, I thought that was a new poll. Wasn't that this week's poll?
Maybe I saw you say that
I
on
think the
Twitter.
New
I don't know.
Hampshire Granite State poll was this week. And the other thing is, there's also this Monmouth poll, which shows that Trump is not doing very well at all against Biden, losing 47-40, and that either means he would never do very well, or everybody's looking for a sign that the indictments are finally having an effect and people are finally getting tired of Trump. I would never get on that train early. You need more than just one poll, but it's a bad poll for Trump.
Yeah. So if DeSantis is so good and just sit down with MSM, where did that trope come from that, and this was really around circulating a month or two ago, that all these would-be donors, as soon as they talk to him, they're so deeply unimpressed that they back out. You heard this, right?
Well, yeah, it was more that they're souring on him, and it could have been because he was not doing that well in the polls as well as they expected. He was originally like all ready to overtake Trump, and then Trump was indicted, and he went back down, and Trump went back up, and that seemed obviously what was happening. And they were upset he wasn't doing that well at the polls. They also have their own donor reasons not to like him, which is if they're corporate types, they don't like the attacks on Disney. If they're traditional Republican donor types, they don't like the hard line on immigration, which is what I like about him. But they don't like him. So, there are all sorts of reasons they could sour him. And he's not as winning as the DeSantis of your dreams. If you build up this, but they should know that. They're donors. They'd met with him before. I don't think it said he was unwinning in person. I think for people like me, he was less winning than I had hoped for, because I had hoped, I had put a lot of hopes and dreams on him, and he had to be this dream candidate. But he's good enough.
Did you have were you at some gathering with him?
I went to one of his fundraising events in Florida where all these donors were, and he was perfectly okay and not humorless, but he wasn't JFK in the charisma department.
Now, speaking of JFK, did you see this poll showing how much better RFK does among Republicans and among Democrats?
No, but I wouldn't doubt that.
It was a favorables, unfavorables thing.
I mean, he's following the Mickey Cow strategy of running in the Democratic primaries, saying things Republicans like.
So if he ran as a third party,
I can tell you, Bob, it's a loser in California, even if you're not me and are a better candidate than me. It's a loser in California.
It's a loser for him.
Might be better nationally.
But my question is, if he ran as a third party candidate, would that help Biden then?
It might. I don't think we know. I don't think we know how it would affect it. The other takeaway from this Monmouth poll is the third party candidate, if it's Manchin, doesn't have that much effect. Biden still beats Trump. If it's RFK, maybe hurts a little more, because maybe RFK is more of a purchase on the Democratic Party than Manchin does. On the other hand, I think this Get RFK campaign has pretty much diminished his appeal to Democrats.
I mean, I agree there's a campaign, but I don't think it took a campaign. I think he was ultimately an unappealing candidate for Democrats to begin with.
Right, but the campaign was sort of scary. All of a sudden, every op-ed person, everybody everybody on Twitter, everybody emailing you was suddenly kill RFK Jr.
It's a combination.
Get RFK Jr.
It's a combination of triggering issues for them. There's COVID and the vaccine. There's Ukraine. And then there's miscellaneous crazy shit that he says.
And there's miscellaneous reasonable shit he's saying about the border and wokeism.
Right, but the border is also triggering for them.
That's the stuff they're really worried about.
No, I'm not passing judgment on the merits of these things. I'm saying that for the crowd that you're saying went after him, these are all triggers. Everything wokeism, border, Ukraine, COVID, vaccine, this is like he's just He's just got a bullseye on his back, obviously.
I don't think that all the traditional people who denounced him, like all the Kennedys that came forward, do they really care about the border? I don't know.
No, I'm not saying all of them care. I'm not saying everyone cares about everything.
I don't think they're triggered by him going and saying the border is out of control. I don't think JFK would have let the border get out of control. I don't think his father would have let the border get out of control.
I agree. That's not one of the top two.
I don't think Bill Clinton would let the border get this out of control.
I don't know. I hear you should debate Bill Scher. He keeps saying, I think he keeps saying,
Mayorkas gets the Academy Award for sweeping the problem under the rug and sluicing the maximum number of migrants in here, allegedly legally, without having photo ops of them massing at the border. So to that extent, he's been effective. But if you want actual, like lower the numbers to the numbers they're supposed to be at the border, he hasn't been doing that. He's been, letting millions and millions of people in.
Mickey, again, I hesitate to challenge you on Hollywood things given your ancestry, but is there an Academy Award for sweeping things under the rug?
I don't know. He's Hollywood royalty too, Bob. He went to Beverly High along with me.
Did he?
Yeah.
I guess you've told me this. You're so plugged in. But at the same time, did you know him? Did you hang out?
He's younger than I am, Bob.
Hard to believe. He looks so youthful.
It is hard to believe. It is hard to believe. That's what they say on the dating sites too.
So I think I was wrong about that Netflix dating game. I think I misunderstood maybe, but still, the sex bots are coming. Remember where you heard it? 5th or 6th.
One thing I wanted you to talk about is this Rob Malley mystery. I know he's a hero. He's a hero of yours. He's one of our 1 or 2 top envoys to try to revive the Iran nuclear accords. And all of a sudden he disappears from sight because he's under review for some scandal they won't tell us about that probably has to do with him giving classified material to Iranians, but maybe not. Who knows? It's all very mysterious. Why would Biden want to do that to him?
I don't know. And it wasn't, you're right. I do. I mean, he's not a hero of mine, but I do like him by and large.
He had cognitive empathy.
He does. He does. Peter Beinart actually, I think, wrote a thing about that, and maybe I did too. But no, he's pretty good on Middle Eastern stuff, and that's his bailiwick. He wrote a thing for the New York Review of Books long ago, saying, back when everyone was saying, well, the Palestinians were offered a 2-state solution, and they turned it down because they don't want blah blah blah. And he wrote this thing saying that. I forget whether this was more about Camp David or about what was it, Abba, or some subsequent, some follow-up. Anyway, that they weren't offered. It was much more complicated than that. And so,
there was one very important article that said that. Did he write that article?
I think he maybe co-authored it, but it was in the New York Review of Books. He was an author or co-author of a thing to that effect in the New York Review like 20 years ago, almost.
Because everybody was pitching on Arafat for seizing defeat from victory, and he was saying it wasn't such a victory.
Yeah, He was saying it was far from a deal that he couldn't refuse. Didn't he was it the Obama administration or something where he got sidelined or disqualified for some position or something because he had been secretly meeting with Palestinians? And of course, secret meetings can lead to a lot of good things, diplomacy-wise. I mean, a lot of things. In fact, the whole Iran deal began with negotiations that weren't public. But
I think he also secretly met with Iranians even after Trump took office. Or in the interim, in the interregnum or something.
Anyway, the answer is I don't know any more than you do. I've seen references to it in the news. I have not inquired in my vast network of insiders, which I should do.
If there were really a concerted effort, they would go after Burns too, right? If they were concerted enough to take down all the Bob Wright heroes who might have too much empathy for the enemy.
Even I don't think that this is at its core an anti-Bob Wright campaign. And I think that most things in the world are, Mickey, but not this.
And they have the goods on Burns. They have a useful weapon to attack Burns if they want to use it.
Burns is feeling his oats, man. He's I think it was at Aspen again. He was interviewed and was, I don't know, doing more in the way of maybe not quite trash talk, but him and Blinken both within the last week or so, more than I think is a good idea. But, the modern idea, trash talk toward Russia, some sort
That's
of.
what they want at the Aspen Ideas Fest.
Well, I know and people should resist. I mean, that's what the whole environment wants. That's what social media wants. That's what, everything in the modern environment is designed to bring out the worst in us. And only you and I are resisting success.
Have you been to the Aspen Ideas Festival, Bob?
I was one year. I gave a talk. I was plugging a book. I had a book to plug.
There. It's one more year than I've ever been. Lucky I'm not bitter about it.
But at least you've been to Davos twice like I have, right, Mickey? Oh, I'm sorry. I was getting you mixed up with somebody else, Mickey. I'm sorry.
Up to a point.
No, I'm sorry. Listen, we've been doing this a while. I don't mean like career-wise. I'm not announcing our retirement. I mean, this is about an hour almost. We should go to the parrot room.
Okay. We have a lot to talk about in the parrot room.
Okay. Keep track of it because I'm not writing it down. What is it?
We have the recrudescence of the big guy. The Biden corruption scandal took a major leap forward this week, at least in terms of publicity, with this hearing on whistleblowers and Senator Grassley releasing some info. And the key info, to my mind, involves the term "big guy."
I have some stuff on that you may like.
Oh, great. We have a new form of electric car paranoia that was introduced by a neighbor of mine. Why you should be scared of your electric car. There were some very bad labor statistics for blacks that got swept under the rug last month. And I was going to talk about it last week, and pretty sure I forgot. So I want to talk about it this week.
Mm-hmm.
They're still bad. There's Trump plans, what Trump's going to do to the government if he wins. Boy, he's going to do a number on the government. We have Marty Peretz's autobiography coming out. Out already.
Have you looked at it?
No. Tim Noah.
Have you looked for your name in the index?
I would never do that, Bob.
Did you come up empty?
It's so stereotypical that there are books where I instantly want to look for my name, and you can't do it anymore. It's so hacked.
Jim Fallows, I think, is the one who said, and maybe he did this. I think maybe he did this. You should publish books without an index so that all the important people will have to read the book.
Right. There's an area where I have sympathy for Xi, the head of China.
Yeah.
Going to that. How unreasonable the Israeli reasonableness standard is.
The Israeli reasonableness standard?
In other words, Netanyahu his judicial reform is to try to stop the Israeli judiciary from saying, you can't do this, it's not reasonable.
Okay, we'll talk about that.
We can talk about that. Not that I'm pro Netanyahu, but he has a point. And there's this fake electors controversy, which itself I think is pretty fake. And suggestive polls from a small obscure precinct in Germany.
That's right up there. That's right up there with Worthwhile Canadian Initiative, Mickey. I'm on the edge of my seat.
No, it's right up there with why Bill Clinton would recognize some things that Joe Biden doesn't.
That's a better head.
At some point, you may have to abandon your Joe Biden can't win the election argument if more polls come out showing him beating the hell out of Trump.
I will abandon that argument at the earliest in mid-November of next year.
Okay. Oh, and there are all the trials and what's going to happen with the trials and.
Oh yeah, what's that? What's the deal with Trump? This pending whole new indictment. Yeah. We
can talk about that.
We can talk about that. So also, Ed Lutvak's Ukraine peace plan. I want to talk about, I'm going to ask you if he's crazy and then ask you if the plan is crazy. Tony Bennett died. I have something to say about that. Meta, I want to talk more about Meta, but not about Threads, this time about their dubious AI policy. Llama 2 has been released. This time it didn't escape. I want you to, this should become a regular feature. Tell me whether I'm just an old cranky guy or have a valid aversive reaction to a certain kind of thing I see online. You know, that's always a question, right? It's like, am I just old or is this really annoying? You know what I mean? Or both. Could be both. I mean, it is both because I am old and they're annoying.
But is it only annoying because you're old and you're not with
right.
it?
Is it only annoying? These are cases where I can't articulate why it's so annoying, and yet I feel in my heart that it is, you know?
That should be a regular feature.
Yeah, it should, because there's a lot of things like that.
Why is this so annoying? Yes, there is.
We should come up with a catchy name for it.
Kenneth mas annoying. Yes. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So that and other things in the Parrot Room at patreon.com/Parrot Room. Also, if you smash the like button right now, what will happen, Mickey? Good things. Good things will happen to those who smash like. As I think that's in the Bible.
You can call me the big guy.
You can call me the big guy.
I will do that in the Parrot Room. See you.